Okay, so last week, Ayya Ahimsa shared um, sort of what happened to her on her retreat time, and so tonight's my turn to do that. Um, so I didn't do a complete retreat. I did 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for the 3 months. And I chose to do that because I had done a 1 month retreat here in-house in March, and it had been quite a horrible experience for me. Mostly because I visited someone in hospital just before the retreat, and I must have picked up COVID because I think day 2 or 3 into the retreat, I came down with COVID and had hardly any symptoms physically, but it just messed with my brain. I had zero ability to focus. Like, I'd just get 2 or 3 breaths and then I'd just be gone. And um, anyway, it was a real struggle. So I just couldn't imagine making a commitment for 3 months. But I must say, and I was the only one in the community doing that. Nobody else was on retreat, so that also made it very hard. So it was a very different experience this winter. Everybody being on retreat. So I don't think I'll have a problem making the commitment next year. And then it was quite a disrupted retreat for me. And the first week we had frozen pipes that burst, so I had to deal with plumbers for a few days. During the first 2 months, I had 5 family members or friends that died. So I attended 4 funerals during that time, and then the 5th funeral just this past weekend. And my mother-in-law was one of the persons who died. And so that involved a lot of family phone calls and planning for her memorial. So it was, anyway, it was quite a disruptive experience. Anyway, before I talk to you, actually, I want to just backtrack a bit. Because Ayya had a lot of sort of body experiences that she shared about that happened to her during the retreat. So I want to sort of talk about that, what happened to me. This is more like 25 years ago when I went through something sort of similar to what Ayya went through. And I just wanted to emphasize that because Beth Upton said in her experience, 50% of the people that she talks to, like who meditate, go through this experience. So I really want everybody to be aware of this. So if this happens to you, you won't freak out. You'll just know it's a good thing that's happening. So what happens is trauma gets stored in our physical body, and then what can happen when I don't know if it's because we're relaxed in meditation or feeling safe or whatever, it can start coming out in various ways. So the first thing that happened to me was I got incredibly hot in my dantian. The dantian is our energy center just below our belly button, and then yoga practitioners know this is the hara. It's sort of the energy center of our body. And mine would get like, we're not just talking warm, like this was like scalding hot. And all I'd have to do was just like sit down on my meditation cushion and bang, I just had this furnace thing happening in my belly that was quite extreme. And then I started getting little jerks, like the shoulder, arm, or whatever. There'd just be these jerk things happening. And then I also did this cranial sacral unwinding thing. I don't know how many people have heard about this, but it's thank goodness I had an experience in a cranial sacral session, so I knew what was happening. So what had happened in this cranial sacral therapy session is they hang your head off the end of the bed, but the therapist supports your head in their hands. And then they just support your head as it just does this sort of natural sort of unwinding kind of emotion. So this started happening to me just spontaneously. I'd just be sitting there in meditation, and then my head would start, doing this kind of a thing. But at least I knew what was happening. It would sort of go on for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and then it would just sort of settle down, come back to alignment and just settle down. And then besides the jerks, I also had the feeling that my body was sort of weaving in circles. I have no idea if it truly was doing that for, if somebody sitting on the outside could see that, but that's what it felt like inside, was that my body was just going in these circles. And then vibrating, like, just this internal vibration. And it got so as soon as I sat down to meditate, it would just start. And it's fairly disruptive, this vibration feeling. And then it started generalizing to any time I sat down. I remember I was going off to a lot of workshops and taking the Greyhound bus. And, I'd be sitting in the bus station waiting for the bus, and then this just incredible internal vibration thing would be going on, because I was sort of sitting still, and my body felt it was like meditation. So it would start this thing. And it reached its crescendo. This went on for 2 years. Ayya's experience went on for much longer, but anyway, it felt like a long time. It went on for 2 years, and it reached its crescendo. I was at a workshop, and I remember sitting down in the workshop that first day, and the vibration happened like quite strong. And then that night, I didn't sleep all night. I was just vibrating so strong inside. And the next day, there were quite a few body workers at this workshop. So they were trying, I told them what was going on. And so they were trying all different kinds of things. And the one thing that worked was just sort of lying down and somebody holding my ankles and pulling my feet down. So I think it was just like a really grounding kind of procedure. Anyway, that was it. It was just this weekend with this incredible energy happening. And then it was over. Like the 2 years of all this jerking and swaying and unwinding and everything else, it ended. I had talked to Ajahn Sona about this, and he just said, well, if you can tolerate it, let it happen, because it's supposedly the trauma releasing from our body. And I never had memories. I think Ayya Ahimsa had memories with hers, but I never had any memories. So I thought, well, maybe it was past life trauma or something. I don't know, because no memories of, any current life traumas that I wasn't aware of, came to the fore. Just this, amazing physical manifestation. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So if this happens to you, just know that it's a good thing, because it means that this trauma that's stored in the body it's releasing, it's coming out. So that's positive. Okay, so this retreat, I had 2 interviews with our teacher, Beth Upton, and so what I talked about was to her was that in my practice, when I sit down, very quickly my breath just gets very, very quiet. It usually disappears fairly rapidly. So it gets very fine. And then there's just a knowing, somehow I know I'm breathing in and I know I'm breathing out, but there's no physical sensation of the, of the breath moving through the nostrils or whatever. And it's a very sort of airy, spacious, pleasant feeling. I always talk about it as my free beach holiday. Because it's pleasant, like you're lying on the beach in the sun, and the breath coming in and out is like the waves coming in and out. And so I would just, like, during my meditation sits, I would just be enjoying being with the breath, being with this spaciousness, this airiness. But then when I'd come out, my critical mind would come in and say, like, nothing's progressing, like, yes, very nice experience, but I'm not progressing, I'm not moving into the really deep states of stillness that we call jhana states. So I was discussing this with Beth, and she was noticing I was being quite critical of myself. And I certainly know that when we're meditating, we really have to, let go. And so I was able to do that, just be in the moment, just be with my breath. But I wasn't taking that adhitthana, that determination to let go and be in the moment. At the end of my meditation, critical mind was coming in and saying, we're not progressing. This is not good. And so she asked me to extend my adhitthana to after my meditation, to just being accepting of what is, how things are. And she said, your meditation practice, she said, is like driving from Canmore to Calgary. If I'm going to drive to Calgary, I first of all have to open the garage, back the car out, drive down the alley, turn right, do all these turns until I get on the highway. So there's a lot happening. So she said that's like at the beginning of a meditation practice. When you first start a meditation practice, you get all kinds of benefits, from, and you can feel your progress and things are going on. But then there's this middle part, and she said that's like being on the highway and it just oh, not looking like much is happening. You're just like holding on to the steering wheel going straight to Calgary. But she said you're putting on a lot of miles. So she said even though it just feels like nothing's happening, you're just sitting there behind the wheel, just going straight now. You're really, traveling a great distance, and we just don't know what that is. We don't know how to judge that. So I was able to let go of my critical mind last part. And then also during my retreat, I listened to a really beautiful workshop by Ajahn Brahmali and Venerable Sunyo on dependent origination. And the penny dropped. We can listen to the same talk, the talk about the same thing over and over again. And then just one day you hear it, and it's like the penny drops, like it's this, like an aha, like it goes in, like you understand it on some kind of a deeper level or something. And this happened for me for what's called latent tendencies. And I've certainly read about the latent tendencies in the suttas, but it's never really struck a chord or anything. But our latent tendencies are those things that are just like behind our back, sort of pushing us through life, sort of kind of determining how we make decisions, how we make choices in our life. And they said that it's very difficult to discover these latent tendencies, outside of a retreat, because our lives are so busy, you know, we're so occupied, there's so much going on. And these are so subtle that it's, you know, they just get wiped out by the noise of living. But if you're in retreat, usually they say it's 3 day, you know, the first 3 days of a retreat, your mind's still sort of preoccupied with what's going on at home and whatever. But after about 3 days, you can sort of start settling down and start, you know, focusing inwards and being with your meditation object. And so they said, yeah, retreat time is a time where you can get in touch with these latent tendencies. And the way to is notice when your mind wanders, where does it wander to? And, you know, so 3 things would happen to me if I, you know, if I was with my breath and then I got pulled away, it was maybe because of physical pain. I've got some mild arthritis stuff in my spine, so if it was pain, I would either slightly adjust my position or do lying down meditation instead of sitting, or if the pain wasn't going away, do the holding technique until it dissipated. So pain was one thing that would happen, and walking on. What number 2 was? Oh yeah, the other thing was falling asleep. You know, you're meditating, then the next thing you know, your chin's down on your chest. And so then I'd take a 20-minute nap. And then the third thing is just wandering, the wandering mind. So what did my mind wander to? So normally when I'm out of retreat, it's planning. But when you're in retreat, nothing's, you know, you don't have any duties, nothing's going on, so there's no planning. So then my brain was just throwing up past things. You know, it was mostly like around problem solving. So it would throw up, you know, because planning is sort of a bit like problem solving, like, oh, I have to do this, how am I going to do it? You know, like sort of trying to figure out how am I going to do it? So it's kind of like a problem solving thing. So since I didn't have any problems to solve, I was retreat, then my brain would just throw up memories of, oh yeah, this situation, and yes, I did this, or maybe I could have done that, you know, so it's, anyway, so that seems to be my big thing, problem solving. And who knows what that comes from. I know growing up, I certainly got the message from parents and teachers I was never doing things good enough or right or something. So probably this, you know, there was maybe a tendency developed to try and get it right or do it right, or, you know, plan it so that it would be right and I would be accepted by parents and teachers. Who knows? Anyway, so I just developed mantras for this, because they're saying you want to change these latent tendencies, because otherwise they're going to inform your rebirth. You know, so do I want to be reborn into a situation where all I'm doing is problem solving? And so I just have mantras like, this is endless. And then I feel the tension of, you know, remembering this problem solving, and then feel the peace of just being with the beautiful, subtle breath, you know. And of course, that's more pleasant than the tension. So one mantra was, this is endless. Another one is, it's over. Like, that problem's over, it's done. It's over. Or like sometimes it would be, it wouldn't be real problems from the past, it would be like made up issues. So then I would just have the mantra of delusion. Or if it was a scary situation, I'd just say, you're safe. Like I just orient myself to, sitting in my bedroom and just say to myself, you're safe. Like it's not happening. Go back to the breath. Okay, so, yeah, that was about it. So that was my major thing was, well, two things. One, stop the critical mind for feeling of lack of progress. And number two, this sort of insight into latent tendencies. And we have what, 5 minutes?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, so we have something else that's happening tonight, but we got 5 minutes if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to share.
How long would you sit Sanghamitta when these different things were happening? And you weren't really into a real meditation?
Oh, well, I was calling it a meditation. It was just I was being distracted. Like I'd be with my breath for a period of time and then mind would wander. And then I bring it back. Yeah, I'd sit for anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. Because I was on retreat. Julie.
You mentioned mostly body movements and the way that trauma can come up when you are beginning a meditation practice. What are some other ways, if there are any?
Some ways the trauma is released.
Yeah, just in that organic manner that you were speaking of. That.
Well, I mean, the only ways I'm really familiar with is what I described. And certainly in my work, doing body-centered therapy as a psychiatrist, one of the things you do is you're tracking the person that you're working with and you're looking for little bodily movements. So, things do come out in the body. And you're watching that, and then you help the person, that in that therapeutic situation, you're helping them release it.
They're on retreat. I've seen often and heard people reporting in group meditations. There's two things that I've seen quite a bit, and one is like a shaking. That can happen, and sometimes that will happen on the cushion, and sometimes if someone's had if they're getting more relaxed, that sometimes that can happen after the meditation. And I've heard people report and they were shaking most of the night, and it's almost like a shivering, but a little bit more exaggerated. And then the other thing is that often you'll see in a meditation hall people sitting in quite different positions, and it's just the body, some tension pattern in the body that's being expressed and starting to unwind. So I've seen, meditators that, will be something like the head often will be like, and they'll be like that for a long time, or like this, or something like this. And they're not doing it, it's just the body doing it, but they'll be in that position for a very long time, like 40 minutes or something, maybe longer. Yeah. Those are two things I've seen quite a bit.
Thanks.
Yeah. Right.
I have a suggestion for your mantra the next time that
Yes.
you find yourself kind of regurgitate, like doing the problem solving thing. You could just say, I am not my problems.
Very good. Yes.
Caleb has a question.
Oh, Caleb,
What does a day in a 3-month silent retreat look like?
what does a day in a theory?
Yeah. Like what's a typical day?
It's a good
in each
question.
retreat?
Yeah, we get up and have, well, I can't even remember now, did we have puja in the morning? Yeah.
We made, our meditation retreat, our meditation teacher Beth Upton, on her retreats, Caleb, there's like a couple of markers, but it's quite open. Cause her experience is that people have very different rhythms. And invariably, most meditators have a certain period in the day that's their prime time. For some people, it's early morning. For other people, it's, mid-afternoon. For other people, it's evening. And so we had a schedule like that where people were finding their own rhythm. Like Anagarika Sarah was sitting a long meditation time in like sort of, I don't know, 8, not into, anyway, the morning, into early afternoon. Yeah, and then, other people would maybe go for a walk early morning and then start to meditate. So there was this encouragement and space for people to find their own rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, there was sitting meditation, walking meditation. We did, some of us were doing qigong. It's a sort of an exercise during the day. Doing sutta readings or listening to some Dhamma talks.
Yeah, for me, I was going to bed like ridiculously early, like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or something, going to sleep about 9 and then getting up, around 4, because that's best for me. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pass this over to Ayya.
So,